That's it. The video duration is 36 minutes. Take you to the vanishing ancient civilization, Olmec. Sleep peacefully in the mystery of the Mayan civilization. In the depths of the American jungle, an ancient story is unfolding. Beneath the dense forests of Weidmara, always a shocking discovery, are reshaping our perception of the Mayan world. Know a large and hidden ancient city emerging from beneath the forest. Let people see. This civilization was once more powerful than we had imagined. Magnificent, and this discovery, it also brings to mind another, equally significant breakthrough. On Olmec land. The name is often interpreted as the Rubber Man, by Aztec and Inca, lost civilizations earlier. It also shows amazing memory and ambition. Today, these two civilizations are riddled with mystery, although hundreds of years apart, but together they are rewriting the history of ancient America. Matter, when we step into the world of Olmec and Maya, to explore their awesome achievements and the profound impact that continues to this day. From the towering pyramid to the complex and ingenious writing system, and their legacy is still impressive. This is not just about a lost city. The story of the city and the forgotten empire. Please join us. Embark on this journey through time. To feel the kind of standing, the shock of the land where the ancients once walked. To unearth those who were trapped in the jungle, long buried secrets in the dirt. This game goes deep into the belly of Olmec and the Mayan world. Exploration of the land. It's not just about understanding the past. It also is allowing us to do it in a whole new way. Rethink the world we live in today. And we see ourselves. People came to Central America. They often go first to the most famous ones, the most spectacular ancient ruins. Giant pyramid. A towering temple. The relatively intact urban ruins are preserved in comparison. The buildings on the ground that can be seen at the Olmec site, there's not much left, and the most iconic relic of this civilization, no doubt those huge physical human heads. They have very distinctive facial features, with other ancient artistic images from Central America. Not exactly the same, and that's why, since they were first discovered, the controversy surrounding its identity and origin, it never really stops. Olmec civilization. It is often referred to as the mother civilization of Mesoamerica. He was in the jungles of southern Mexico. Slept for hundreds of years. Until the 19th century, European explorers and local researchers' remains began to be discovered one after another. This is more famous than many Mayan cities and Aztec Empire, famous earlier. It gradually re-entered people's field of vision. The most iconic discovery of the Olmec civilization appeared in 1862. At that time, people in Veracruz, Mexico, near Tres Zapotes, a giant stone statue was found, one of the first to document him in detail. It's Jose Maria Murgari Serrano. In those days, the appearance of this avatar is almost inexplicable. He was huge, fine shape, facial image. It is also familiar with ancient American sculptures at that time. Somewhat different. Mergar used the popular racial classification at the time. Describe his face as sporting a tulip. Ethiopian characteristics. This judgment later triggered much speculation. Some people think the people who built these avatars may be from Africa. There are also attempts to associate them with Asia or Pacific culture. But these early ideas, mostly based on the face, the subjective judgment of appearance, they didn't really realize it. These sculptures belongs to an America with an independent cultural tradition, indigenous civilization, early discovery, and most confusing of all was his environment. This head is over 1.8 meters high, weighs several tons. In the eyes of researchers at the time, he is surrounded by any known relic is completely different. Until the early 20th century, as more ruins and statues were discovered, people are just beginning to see behind these figurative what civilization is hidden. In the 1920s and 1930s, Franz Blum, early researchers such as Matthew Stirling, more on the Gulf Coast, systematic investigation and excavation, American archaeologist Matthew Stirling, more giant heads found, and large altars, stone carvings and other important objects. The findings were concentrated in 3 locations: San Lorenzo, La Venta and Tres Zapotes. Today they are considered to be the Olmec civilization, the most important center. The scale revealed by the excavations, far beyond the imagination of early researchers. Olmec giant head. Height varies from about 1.5 meters to over 3 meters. The heaviest individuals may approach 40 tons. That's the weight of several adult African elephants. Every avatar, they're all carved out of a single block of basalt. And these basalts don't come from near the site. They mainly come from the Tuxtla Mountains or dozens of miles away. That is to say, the Olmecs first mined the mountain for the boulders. Crossed them again. Swamps and tropical jungles. Transportation to city and ceremonial centers. But they didn't have modern lifting equipment. No metal transportation. There are no big camels. Although Central America knows the principle of the wheel, there is no evidence that they use wheeled vehicles for this type of boulder transportation. Then these stones weighing tens of tons. How to cross a long distance. Some people think the Olmec may have used logging along the river for transportation, and then through the wooden rollers, rope and a lot of manpower, drag the boulder to the final position. From an engineering standpoint, it's not impossible. But the organizational skills he needs, the scheduling of people and the planning of routes are still very impressive. From the day civilization was rediscovered, the Olmecs have always been surrounded by mystery. These giant heads have broad faces, clear demeanor, and intricate headgear like a helmet. Who do they represent? Why spend so much manpower? Put someone's face, carved into monuments weighing tens of tons. The purpose of these heads. It's still Elme, one of the most important questions in Graham's research, despite its huge size. The detail of the statue is very accurate. Lips bridge of the nose. The eyes and facial muscles have been carefully treated. Different avatars also show obvious, different demeanors and individual characteristics. This led many archaeologists to believe they may not be abstract magic. They are monumental portraits of real people. These people, perhaps the ruler of Olmec society, an important leader or person of special status. A headgear resembling a helmet on the avatar has also led to different explanations. Some people think they belong to the protective gear of warriors. Some people think they may be related to Central America. Ancient game rituals. Others believe that these headdresses symbolize royal power, identity, or the special connection between a person and a god. But really the hardest question to answer, still not who these avatars represent, but the Olmecs more than 3,000 years ago. How to mine, transport, and carved out these huge stones that weighed tens of tons. This problem persists until today. It remains the most archaeological center in Central America. One of the most fascinating mysteries, the basalt used by these giant heads, mainly from the Tuxtla Mountains or dozens of kilometers away, to put such a heavy stone from the mountains to the city of Olmec. No doubt requires amazing human organization and engineering smarts. Some researchers believe that Olmecs may have used wooden rollers, shovels and ropes, consigned by a large number of laborers. Others propose they may first use rivers and wooden valves, complete most long-distance transportation, and drag the boulder from the water's edge to the final location. All of these approaches are theoretically possible. But Olmec, which way did people use? How to arrange the specific route? So far, it has not been fully confirmed. This also allows their megalithic projects, always with a layer of mystery that is difficult to dissipate. The age of Olmec heads and other buildings, mainly not determined by the stone itself. Archaeologists rely on it's the stratigraphic relationship around the site, artifacts unearthed at the same time, and radioactive detection of nearby organic materials. Currently known, one of the first major Olmec centers. It's San Lorenzo. He died around 1200 BC. It has developed into a large scale, a major political and ceremonial center. In some areas, the age of activity may be even earlier. Another important city, Levanta, then around 900 BC. 400 years of prosperity. This means that the Olmecs are Central Americans, one of the first complex societies to emerge. Their prosperity, hundreds of years before many famous Mayan cities. To determine the age of the giant head, archaeologists will study them carefully when they are found. Formation. The lower the layer, the older it is. By analyzing pottery in different layers, exploring building ruins and other devices, researchers can gradually restore the site. Sequence of development, the charcoal found near the statue, seeds or other organic materials. Then you can accept radioactive detection years. Together, the evidence suggests that the Olmec civilization is deeply rooted before Central America, classical period. It is also because it appeared so early. Olmec, humans are often referred to as the mother civilization of Mesoamerica. This argument holds that they may have been later Maya, Aztec and other Mesoamerican cultures. And it offers some important ideas and institutional foundation. For example, some legislative concepts of the Central American game, the planning of Sacred King Priory Center, and certain recurring religious images. But This doesn't mean that all later civilizations were simple, originated in Olmec. Today, more and more researchers believe that, between different regions of Central America, there may be long-term mutual communication and mutual influence. Olmec is one of the most important, but not necessarily the only source. Judging from the resources required for a giant head, Olmec, there may well have been a clear hierarchy in society, differentiation, only the ruling class with great power to mobilize a large number of laborers, tissue stone mining, arrange transportation, serve food, and let the craftsmen invest a long time, completed a monumental statue weighing tens of tons. Therefore, a more mainstream view holds that these avatars, possibly a portrait of the ruler of Olmec. Every face has its own unique features, different expressions, different headgear. Maybe it's in honor of a real leader who existed. Let their authority and achievements preserved forever in the form of boulders. But some people think these avatars may have religious or ceremonial functions. People and animals often appear in Olmec art. Reality and God, images of spiritual transformation. Some scholars speculate that they may exist with shaman related beliefs. Traditional these giant heads. It may have been placed in important ceremonial areas to mark the sacred space guard entrance, or symbolize ancestors, the connection between rulers and gods. But do they really represent the gods? There is still no definite answer. Same as his origin. The decline of the Olmec civilization is also full of mystery. San Lorenzo gradually developed in an earlier period, loss of centrality, and then Levanta came along. It also went into decline around 400 BC. The once prosperous city was abandoned. Large memorial project stopped. Olmec political center, fading from the stage of history. Why is this happening? There are still multiple explanations. One of the views is that environmental change may have played an important role. The Olmec core is located on the river, between wetlands and low-lying plains. Agriculture and transportation are both highly dependent on stable water systems. However, archaeological and geological studies in the later stages of civilization, local river channels and hydrological may have changed significantly. Some rivers may be diverted to some areas. Siltation occurs, floods or reduced water sources, originally fertile land, may gradually lose capacity. Once crop production decreases, there will be problems with the food supply. And when a highly centralized society can't continue to feed the urban population with a large workforce, the political order may also be shaken. Environmental pressure, shortage of resources, social contradictions and competition between ruling centers may have jointly promoted Olmec. The decline of civilization, but they don't really disappear from history. They're symbols. Religious architectural forms and political concepts, later still in Central America, emerging from other civilizations. Those giant heads remain silent in the jungle. They have no text description. I didn't tell my descendants who I really stood for. But these stones alone. We can be sure of one thing. Long before the Maya and the Aztecs, Central America, well, there has been an emergence of a very strong organization, mature artistic tradition, civilization with grand political ideals. Another theory holds that the decline of the Olmec civilization, it may be related to internal conflicts. Like many ancient civilizations, the power struggle between the ruling classes, it may have gradually weakened the original political structure. Different centers compete with each other. Society starts to divide. Could have centralized the mobilization of manpower and resources. The system is also destabilized. In some Olmec ruins, the monument was indeed found to have been vandalized. The statue was disfigured, and signs of ritual buildings being burned. These phenomena suggest that the end of Olmec society, it may not be entirely peaceful. They may reflect regime change, social unrest, even some kind of violent conflict. But who exactly destroyed these sites? And why would you do that? There is still no definite answer. Here are some ideas. Attributing the decline of the Olmec civilization to external forces. Some people speculate, other ethnic groups from the highlands of Mexico, possible entry into the Olmec core. Overthrow the original ruling class. Some people think the Olmec civilization did not exist in isolation. It belongs to a broader trade and cultural networks. When multiple centers in a region are simultaneously affected by resources or political pressure, the entire communication system could gradually collapse. The decline of Olmec may be just part of a larger upheaval. But beyond these relatively realistic explanations, there have been some that have been more marginalized. One of the most famous theories: Atlantis and alien civilizations. Some people think Olmecs could be Atlantis. descendants of survivors, according to this statement. When Atlantis was destroyed in disaster, some of the survivors crossed the ocean to America. They brought advanced knowledge, arts and engineering technology. Ultimately, the Olmec civilization was established. The maturity of Olmec art, the construction capacity of giant stone carvings, and the mysterious subsequent decline of civilization, as a clue to the connection between the two. But here's the thing, no reliable relics, textual or geological evidence, can prove the existence of Atlantis. Even less proof that the Olmecs came from there. So this view remains just one highly speculative theory. Here's a slightly bolder alternative. The Olmec civilization and extraterrestrial life connect. This theory holds that Olmec humans may have received help from an alien civilization. Those outsiders impart technology and knowledge to them, and they were able to make monolithic stone sculptures with large construction projects. Giant head. Therefore, he became a proponent of alien theory. One of the most commonly cited evidences, some people think, their unique facial features. It may not be depicting ordinary humans. It was also suggested that such fine carving and such a difficult boulder transportation, it wouldn't have been possible with the technology at the time. But this inference, it ignores the powerful organizational capacity of ancient societies. Large number of laborers, rope logging, overseas Chinese and long-term collaboration. You can do things that seem pretty incredible. So far, there is no scientific evidence to suggest that alien life was involved in the construction of the Olmec civilization. Therefore, the so-called extraterrestrial aid, closer to modern mythology, rather than a serious historical hypothesis. Anyway, the rediscovery of the Olmec civilization remains an important event in the history of archaeology. It allowed people to really understand for the first time, before the Maya and the Aztecs, Central America already has a high-level, complex society, giant stone man head, large ceremonial building, a mature and unique art system, and religions that have a wide impact on future generations, and political ideas. These achievements still fascinate scholars and the public today. About the origin of the Olmecs, technology and decline, there are still many unanswered questions, but that doesn't mean we must use Atlantis or alien civilizations to fill all the gaps. Really stunning. Maybe it was the Olmecs themselves. More than 3,000 years ago, a civilization entirely native to the Americas already have enough wisdom, organization and creativity, put dozens of tons of stones, carved into faces that can travel through the times, and the more bizarre theories. Even without evidence, it also reminds people to keep asking. Deep in the history of ancient America, how many more stories are there? Still buried in the jungle or under the dirt? And in the boiling basin in northern Weimara, there is a city, best represents the heights the Mayan world has ever reached. Tikal. It hides in the lush rainforests of northern Guatemala. It is now part of Tikal National Park. It is also UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is pre-Columbian times. The Maya civilization was the largest, one of the most historically significant sites. Tikal is not one, an empty city composed only of temples. In his heyday, tens of thousands of people live in urban centers and surrounding areas. Ruler, priest, artisan, traders and farmers. Together, they sustained a vast urban society. Classical period from about 200 to 900 AD. Tikal has long been Maya Titi's most important political figure, one of the economic and military powers. He owned a towering pyramid temple, complex palace complex, large square, water storage system, road, and extended into the depths of the forest. But we must understand, Tikal is not like Rome. Has continuous dense stone blocks. It is also different from the central Mexico plan, highly regular Teotihuacan. The Mayan cities had a different kind of spatial structure. The grand political and ceremonial core is surrounded by numerous courtyards, surrounded by farmland reservoirs and scattered residential areas. Forests are not just wilderness outside cities. It was originally part of the overall cityscape. So when modern people first walked into Tikal, what you see is not a piece, the neatly arranged ruins of buildings, but a building that once stretched out into the forest. They're bigger than any tropical city we can see. 1848. Peyton local official Modesto Mendez entered the ruins with Ambrosio Tut. Local Aboriginal people. The existence of these ruins has long been known, and it provides direction for the observer. Accompanying painter Eusebio Lara, drawing the first images of architecture and sculpture. The report and drawings left by Mendez and his party, for the first time, the wider outside world, a clearer understanding of the scale of Tikal. A temple towering above the canopy of trees, a square surrounded by vines. Stele full of characters and characters. These records are drawing the attention of European and American researchers. Early 1880s. British explorer Alfred Percival Maudsley to Tikal for more systematic documentation. He mapped buildings, photographing ruins, copy engraving, and record those who were still hidden at that time. Stones hidden in the jungle, stele and temple. Before modern archaeological excavations were in full swing, these photos, floor plan and text description, became one of the most important early sources of Tikal. It's these jobs. Let the international academic community gradually realize this is not an isolated sacrificial relic. It is a building with a long history. Huge city of dynastic history. The really large-scale scientific excavation began in 1956. From 1956 to 1970, University of Pennsylvania. The museum organized Tikal for many years. The project was originally led by Edwin Schock. Wilhelm Koh took over. The archaeological team conducted a systematic survey of the city, excavate important buildings, restoration of some temples, and study the architecture of Tikal. Political and social history. They have documented the remains of thousands of buildings. A large number of elite and Wang's tombs were also found, one of the most famous discoveries. Beneath the Temple of Tikal 1. This building is also known as the Great Jaguar Temple. Deep in the pyramid, archaeologists have discovered a extremely rich royal family. The owner of the tomb was later identified as one of the most important rulers of Tikal. Yesau Excaveli. He revived Tikal at the end of the 7th century AD. And defeated Long Karakomer, which is expected to compete with the city. A large number of jade stones were found in the forced tomb. Pearl shell. Knotty pyrite. Mirrors and carved fine bones. These funeral objects are not just symbols of wealth. They also reflect the Mayan rulers' religious status, political rights and cross-regional trade links. Tombs of Tikal, often built inside temples or large platforms. Some of the timbers use stacked vaults. The blocks jut in layer by layer. It finally closes at the top. This structure is not really a circular mercury ring, but it can support heavy superstructures. For the classical Chimayas, the pyramid is not just a sacrificial platform. He could also be a monument to a ruler. It is the undead and the ancestors, the gods and the current kingship, connected sacred space. But really make Tikal history speak again. It's not just burials, steles and altars in the city square. The historical archives left by the Mayans. The inscription records the succession of the ruler, royal blood, war victory, captive ceremony, construction engineering, and alliances formed or broken with other city-states. The figures on the stone tablets often wear gorgeous costumes, wearing a huge feather crown. Surrounded by gods, ancestors and mythical creatures. Image showcase king power. The text indicates who this ruler is. When did he ascend the throne? What event was completed? Mayan script. It's a set of ideograms and syllables. Complex systems that work together. He is not a simple picture. It's not an incomprehensible mysterious symbol. Generations of researchers have continued to decipher those inscriptions that have been silent for thousands of years. Finally, it can be reread. Officially rely on these words. Archaeologists are gradually reconstructed the dynastic sequence of Tikal. They knew about Jasa, the name of former Kavalai. Also knew that his successor, Igan X Kaval. Jasa reverses Tikal. A situation of prolonged repression. Igan further solidified the victory left by his father. Bhagava. Expand the city. Let Tikal enter prosperity again. These inscriptions. It also reveals the relationship between Tikal and Kalakmul. Hundreds of years of competition. He is not alone. A war between cities. It's a long-term confrontation between two huge political networks. Alliances keep changing affiliated city-states. Guide the two sides to different camps. The failure of a ruler. Maylet. The balance of power across the region has shifted. A victory. It could also usher in decades of prosperity with large-scale construction. So Tikal. Not a stone ruins that belong only to archaeology. He used to be a city full of people. The real city of politics and war. They have rulers. Enemy-ally. The boom years have also experienced long lows. And the dates and names engraved on the stone tablets. And for the first time, we can go beyond myths. Imagine the Mayan civilization. We're starting to hear their own voices. And that's why. And that's where the biggest mystery gets even more urgent. A city with tens of thousands of residents. Mature text. A city of grand architecture and complex political networks. Why did it gradually develop over the centuries? Stop building monuments. Why is it that one classical lacquered Mayan city after another will decline at similar times? Stone of Tikal reconstructed his rise for us. But when the last remembrance fades away, they also bring us into Mayan history. The most disturbing silence. Wars continue throughout the history of Tikal. Past. People once imagined Mayan cities as safe, quiet priesthood center. Priests observe the starry sky. The ruler officiates the ceremony. Cities maintain ties through trade and religion. But the inscription captive image, weapon, and the discovery of defensive engineering tells us the Mayan world is not peaceful. He's also full of alliances, betrayal, expansion and war. Outside Tikal, archaeologists have discovered an extension, large ditches for kilometers, canals and land. These projects were once interpreted as defensive installations. It may be used to block enemy forces from approaching the city core, or control the important route to Tikal. But they're not a circle. The stone wall that completely encloses the city. Some researchers believe that these ditches are not only for defense, may also undertake territorial demarcation, the role of diverting water flow and even managing the wetland environment. Their true function is still debated to this day. Obsidian blades were also found in the ruins. Gravel spearheads and other weapons that can be used in combat. Some human remains retain traces of trauma. Captured enemies are depicted on stone tablets, kneeling loser, and the ruler of Tikal standing before them. Together, the evidence suggests that war is not an occasional accident. It's classic, an important part of Mayan politics. The longest and deepest of them all. Conflicts affecting the Mayan base structure, between Tikal and Calakmul. These two cities are not just competing for a piece of land. They each built a vast network of alliances. Numerous smaller city-states around, caught in a centuries-long rivalry between the two sides. Sometimes Tikal has the advantage. Sometimes Calakmul defeats Tikal. Support your allies. Cut off each other's political ties. War is not just about territory. It includes trade routes, total population, and the legitimacy of ruling other cities. Mayan inscriptions record some important victories. Failure allows researchers to see how a single battle changed the fate of a dynasty, how to redraw, divide the entire political map of Maya deity. But war is only one side of Tikal. Into the city center. The first shocking. Still those, a temple rising from above the rainforest. On the east side of the main square, the famous temple number 1 stands. He is also known as the Great Jaguar Temple. The entire building is approximately 45 to 50 meters high. Steep steps leading to the top, temple. The pyramids were completed around the beginning of the 8th century AD, with the ruler of Tikal, closely related to the former Kavalai of Jassa. His tomb is located inside this temple. Therefore, Temple 1 is both a platform for ceremonies. It is also a monument and mausoleum to a great king. The temple at the top of the staircase is not large. What really makes a building stand tall? It's the huge crow view above the temple. At that time, the Black Ridge view was covered with stucco sculptures. A large image of a ruler or deity. It overlooks the square from above the city. The building itself, it's like an ancestor buried underground. Connect with the sacred world in the sky. On the other side of the main square, and facing Temple 1 is Temple 2. He is also known as the Temple of Masks. The pyramid is about 38 to 42 meters high. Researchers generally agree that he may be in memory of, built by Queen Kavalai of Jassa. But unlike Temple 1, archaeologists have yet to find any evidence of it. Wang's tomb that can finally be identified. The facade of the temple was once decorated with large stucco masks. These faces can do wonders. Ancestors or supernatural figures associated with kingship. When Temples 1 and 2, when looking at each other across the square, they form the most spectacular cityscape in Tikal. It may also symbolize a member of the royal family. The relationship between ancestors and the divine order. But the tallest building in Tikal is not in the main square. Through the forest to the west of the city, Temple 4 will suddenly emerge from the tree canopy. Its height is about 65 to 70 meters. Even today, he is still one of the most famous in the ancient Mayan world. One of the tall buildings, Temple number 4, was built around the middle of the 8th century AD. The ruler at that time was Ijan X Carville. He is the successor of Kavalai before Jassa. Continues an era of Tikal's re-emergence. Standing high in the temple, the line of sight can go beyond the vast forest number 1. The woosher of Temples 2 and 3. The view is like several isolated islands protruding from the sea of green trees. This height is not only visually stunning, He also announced to the surrounding area, rulers have the ability to mobilize vast amounts of manpower. He can approach the sky. They can also exercise their rights, permanently written into the city's skyline. Except for these temples, Tikal also has complex palaces and administrative space. The central acropolis consists of interconnected buildings. Narrow passages pass through different courtyards. Stairs lead to high and low rooms. Here may have been a member of the royal family, officer and attendant life. A place to meet and handle evidence. The building has undergone several expansions. The old room is closed. The new platform overrides the earlier structure. The whole building is unfinished, like a dynastic archive written in stone. Northern Way City on the north side of the Great Square. It bears a more obvious religion, with burial functions. Temples are densely scattered here. Altar and mausoleum. From the pre-classical period to the classical period, Tikal people are constantly building on top of old buildings. The rulers of the new construction generation are buried here. The next generation is over his grave again. Build a new temple. Therefore, the Northern Way City is not just a group of buildings. It is Wang's ancestral holy land that has continued to grow for thousands of years. Stone tablets and prototype altars erected in city squares. It contains the most direct historical record of Tikal. The image of a king or queen is often carved on stone tablets. They wore elaborate ceremonial costumes, holding an object that symbolizes power. The surrounding text records the date of enthronement, sacrifice, royal blood, and important legislative events. It is these inscriptions, allowing archaeologists to rebuild Tikal, order of the rulers. Also let the city that used to be only ruins. I got my character back. Time and events. Connect these temples. Square and residential area. It was the elevated road that the Mayans called the Sac-Abe. They are usually filled with limestone. The road surface is higher than the surrounding ground. Retaining structures on both sides reduce rain erosion. These roads make it slippery during the rainy season. It can still move between different parts of the city. Royal team, labor and goods, could follow them through Tikal. But there is no big one here. Natural rivers flow through the city. What really determines the survival of tens of thousands of people? It's not a road, it was water. Northern Guatemala has a distinct dry season. After the end of the rainy season, cities must live off previously stored rainwater. So the Tikal people transformed these natural depressions. Construction of large impoundments, dams and drainage channels. Rain from the square. The roof and the paved ground flow into the reservoir. Long-term storage. These facilities, allowing Tikal to maintain its population in hand, agriculture and large-scale urban activities. The study also found that parts of the Tikal reservoir may have been used mineral filter material in waste rock and quartz discovered in the Colossal reservoir. It may have been used to improve drinking water quality. This shows that the Mayan Water Conservancy project, not only does it solve the water storage problem, it may also involve active management of water quality. Astronomy also deeply influenced Mayan architecture. The location of some temples and buildings can correspond to sunrise or sunset on a specific date. These are relevant to its relationship. May help priests determine the seasons, arrange ceremonies and maintain legislative operations. But the whole Tikal is completely in accordance with a certain constellation arrangement. It has not been fully proven yet. A more plausible understanding is, the Mayans would orbit the sun. Legislative date. Royal ceremonies are combined with urban architecture. For them, cities are not man-made spaces separate from the universe. He is the order of the universe. Projection on the earth. People sometimes compare the pyramids of Tikal compared to the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. A tremendous amount of empathy. Rulers need to pool resources and labor. It is also possible to die with the royal family, ancestor worship and eternal rights. But their function and structure are not the same. The main bodies of the pyramids of Giza are mostly solid gas structure, internal setting channel and visual. The core function is the royal tomb. Pyramid of Tikal. It is usually the platform that supports the temple at the top. Priests and rulers can climb the stairs. A public or office opening ceremony in a temple. Some pyramids contain the undead. Others are mainly used for religious activities and memorials. The Mayan pyramids were repeatedly covered and expanded. A larger new building, often wrapped directly outside the old temple. So each floor of the building, both preserve an earlier era. The inscriptions inside the Egyptian pyramids were relatively limited. And the stele of Tikal, altars and architectural carvings, leaves a lot of specific history. The name of the ruler, date of war, the identity of the enemy, the rise and fall of dynasties. Here architecture not only leads to gods and ancestors. They are also talking about a city. How do you perceive your own history? Tikal shows Not one who can only observe the starry sky, building a temple for a peaceful world. This is a genuine ancient city. He needs to store water. Construction road, dependent population, maintenant s'alliance, Bhagava. At the same time, let the power of the ruler rest in the stone tablet. Eternal expression in mausoleums and pyramids. But all the magnificent cities. Ultimately, we all face the same problem. Tikal has such a complex project. Writing and political system. Why is it still declining at the end of the classical period? Maybe the answer is not just buried in the forests of Wittamara.